Hello, hope you're having a good day. Wanted to show off a fun new feature I've added into the game. I'm just going to hop right in and show you. Alright, so now when we speak with our adventurer and receive the item, we now have a physical representation of it in the game. And then if I was to go to the forge and deposit it, it goes into the forge. This is repeatable. Very good. So what I've done, and this is very simple, is I've just put a sample object, I'm calling it sample thing in hands for the time being, put that as a child of the main camera, so it follows the camera. I also tried it as a child of the player, just to see which I preferred. You know, as a child of the player, it would kind of just be like where you see this gizmo right here. It would just kind of be there. Even if I looked up and down, it would stay there. And I felt like the one that followed the camera's movements was a little bit more, it felt a little more natural and appropriate. So it also has a script attached. It's a blank script for now. What I'm planning on doing, and I'm going to be doing this here actually on this video today, just kind of mapping out what information I want stored where, right? What information I want stored on these objects, and what information I want stored in different interactables in the player. And another big thing that I want to do is just kind of work through my redesign of my exchangeable interface and how I'm handling this, right? Because I did run into already ran into inconveniences and problems with something as simple as showing this object here. So what I've done is I've got it marked as inactive. I only ever intend for the player to hold one thing, right? I never want the player to ever have more than one thing in their hands. So it makes the most sense for them to just simply have this object toggled on and off with the properties overwritten as appropriate. So yeah, that I can keep that nice and simple. Don't have to do any fancy stuff there. But I did run into some issues here, like so for the player hold stuff is where I've placed this information. I have a naming like a naming awkwardness here where the game object here, in fact I should clarify this is the actual object of the piece of gear, and then the held item this is the sample thing in hands object that visually represents the object in front of the player. Okay, cool. So yeah, I want to come up with better names here because thing in hands and held item very vague. Doesn't really get the idea across. Maybe I would call this something like just visual representation of item or something like that. Just keep it very clear. And I also think it would probably make the most sense for the visual representation of the item to perhaps hold the references to the item, just so the item is handling all its own stuff and the player's not having to carry that information, but I'll consider that shortly. But anyway, the trouble I ran into was, well, not trouble, the awkwardness I ran into was in player hold stuff. The way I have it set up is when someone is trying to, in fact, this is another naming awkwardness. Method called when another object is giving to the player. Okay, and then this one right here is going to be method called when another object is taking from the player, i.e. player.take. Cool. All right. So in my player's give thing method, so far so good. It was just a simple matter of setting the item to active, right? Like, it does the same stuff it did before. It's checking if my hands are full. So if there's already something in my hands, it's just going to simply return this message for now. Just say, I can't take the thing, I've already got something. And since it's like a hard rule that I'd never intend to change, that the player can only carry one thing at a time, I'm perfectly fine with this. This makes absolute sense. And then it just returns, gets me out of here. And then in the case that my hands aren't full, makes my hands full, sets the object reference to the item I'm getting, and then now it's also setting the item as active, and then spitting out a message. So that's all well and good. This all makes sense. But then the implementation as it is now, at least, is that the thing that's going to have the forge set the item as not active, right? Make the cube disappear. That's in the script for the forge. And I really don't like that. I hate that. I want all the stuff that pertains to what my player is doing to be in the player's area, all the stuff that pertains to what the forge is doing in the forge's area. And, you know, that's just going to be part of what my re-implementation of this is going to be today. So I just wanted to real quick kind of just go over how I wanted to refactor this interface, which is currently called iThingExchangeable. I also want to change that. I'm just going to call it IGiveAndTake. That makes a lot more sense. Oh no, what have I done? All right, very good. So now, under IGiveAndTake, I want it to do a couple of things. I want it to be able to I want it to check. I want it to be able to attempt to give an item to another object. I want it to attempt to receive an item from another object. I want it to be able to track whether an object is able to give or receive items. And I want to ensure that all information and actions pertinent to objects is isolated to them. Okay, so how I would probably do this is there would be a method. I would keep the give, but I would also want a little bit more information. And I can just do it like this. All right. And so the give would be when something is attempting to give to me. So I would want a check to see if I'm eligible to be given the item. I want a reference to the item, obviously. I want a reference to the thing that's trying to give to me. And that's one of the big ones, because in the code right now, that's not how I've got it set up. For example, in the Forge, it has a it's like a coded in reference to the player hold stuff class, right? And that would be the same for everything else. And in light of wanting to make this a little more scalable, especially, and I don't have plans for this right now, but just leaving my options open. If I wanted interactions to be more than just player giving and receiving from interactables, perhaps if I wanted something to go from interactable to interactable, right? The easiest example that comes to mind is if I wanted something to funnel its output into storage directly, right? Like forge into storage for like scrap. I would want a little bit more of a robust setup here. So that's why I want to do the reference to the thing that's trying to give me. That way I don't need to have, you know, a growing mess of declarations at the beginning of my classes of things that I foresee as wanting to be able to give. And then beyond this, that's about it. Just any other special well, no, never mind. I don't need that. So yeah, I'm checking to see if the object is eligible to be given an item, and then I need the reference to the item being given, and then I need a reference to the thing that's trying to give it. Cool. And then for take, good. All right, so for take, this is going to be very similar. I want to check to see if eligible item can be taken. And I want to have this check in both give and take because, again, I want things to be responsible for their own business and not worrying about other people's business. So if I was trying to handle the interaction right between the right here at the beginning where it's the adventurer and the player, I want the player to check to see if their hands are full, and that would determine whether or not they're eligible to receive the item from the adventurer. Meanwhile, I want the adventurer to check to see if they actually have an item in their inventory to give in the first place. And I don't want these two to have to do that check for each other. The player handles their business on the receiving end. The adventurer handles their business on the giving end. So, I want to reference the item, reference to the thing that's trying to take from me. And then from here, that's just the basic properties. And then I'm just going to have like a little diagram of a sample instance where I expect to be using this, right? So I'm going to have black be the adventurer. And I'm going to have, what is my player? Gray. I'm going to have gray be the player. Actually, I think the adventurer is red. It really doesn't matter, but just for ease of the example here, my adventurer is brown. Okay. All right, and my player is gray. So in the interaction, I want it to look like this. So step 1, player interacts with the adventurer. 2, I want to, at some point in the interaction with the adventurer, I'm going to want an option to take something from them, right? Like when I've implemented dialogue, I'm going to talk to the adventurer, and then at some point they're going to offer to have me take their stuff and upgrade it, right? So at some point in interaction with the adventurer, player will indicate they wish to take stuff from the adventurer. So what I want that to look like is the player is calling player calls adventurer dot take, because the player is trying to take something from the adventurer. And then the adventurer calls player dot give. Cool. And then while this is happening, let's do like a adventurer checks if they have something to give. And then if they do, call proceed to step 4. And then in step 4, the adventurer calls player.give. Adventurer checks if player can take. If they can, give them the item. All right. And so this is how I expect the typical interaction is going to go. And then let's do one more of these for an example where the player is interacting with the forge. So I'm going to take the player, and I'm going to draw a forge. And in this example, I want it to look something like this. Oh no, it's red text. The player interacts with the forge. All right. And then the player calls forge.give. And then here, the forge, I guess I could do, at the moment, the forge is just kind of a bottomless pit. You throw stuff in it, it melts it down to components like iron or whatever, iron, steel, ingots. So perhaps there would be like a check for, maybe it checks if rare or special items are being given, confirming if player wants to mulch them. Yeah, other than that, if I wanted to implement a capacity, I should design around it just in case, is a concern, check to see if there is capacity for the item. All right, and then meanwhile, if all the above checks out, proceed to step 3. Yep, same as above. And then step 3 is going to be the forge calls player.take. And then the forge is going to have the reference to the player, because same as above, because now I'm adding in a reference to the object. So when I'm calling forge.give, I'm passing a reference to myself. And so now the forge is able to use that reference to call take. And then again, it checks if player can give object. If it can, take it. All right. So just kind of working through this, I lost text there for some reason. Just putting everything in plain English on paper has made it easier to figure out how I want these methods to actually work. And so I can clean it up. And I think my existing take thing implementation is one of the big offenders. And enabling that is the fact that I did not pass references to self here. Well, yeah. To the self in the give thing. So that's my plan for the next video. I've got it all laid out here, how I want to refactor this and rename it to make things clear. And with that being said, thanks for watching. I hope y'all have a great day, and see you next time.